Hey guys, Wolfie here and welcome back to the channel. As always, the usual disclaimer, any opinion here is mine and mine alone, and you guys know what time it is. It's RWBY time. To be more specific, RWBY Volume 9, Chapter number 2. Now, like I've been doing with Chapter 1, I'm doing the chapters that are out for the premium members 1 week behind, so that way those who are don't pay for whatever, they get to see what's going on 1 week later. And just a bit of a friendly reminder, this is a timed exclusive to Crunchyroll because we're going to be seeing this on Rooster Teeth's website next year. Now, regarding Chapter 3, which I did see, I'm going to have this, I may be filming this earlier, but it won't be posted until next week, so just to keep on pace with that. But like I said, this is Chapter 2, which is called Altercation at the Auspicious Altercation. Let me rephrase the episode name. It's Altercation at the Auspicious Auction. I gotta get it right. Now, this is some of the notes I have here, which are in my little notebook right here. So it's pretty much what I've caught and what I think about a lot of stuff. Now, there is a particular scene, a certain scene, that's going to be, part of a special video that I'm going to have to really work on. Once I get to really view Volume 9, then I'm going to have to go back to previous volumes, put the pieces together, that sort of thing. And once we get to that particular scene, I'll go into what I'm planning in the future. So, regarding this particular chapter, this is Volume 9, Chapter 2, Altercation at the Auspicious Auction. Some notable things I've been seeing. One of them, and it's kind of a key one, is tensions within the team being pretty damn present. And I'll get into that in a little bit later when I get to my thoughts and opinions on certain things. And particular tensions involve RWBY, Weiss, and Yang. Now, the whole thing with doubts, that's another thing that could cause some tensions in the team. Meaning that we're going to go into part of a certain scene. We're not going to go and get into the earlier part of it. I'm going to go focus on the right now, the later part of it, where it's Weiss, commenting something on what's ahead. RWBY's not paying any attention. And it was moments later where it's Weiss expressed some format of regret of not doing more for Atlas. Meaning that she's starting to see the patterns repeating itself. Because if you remember what happened with Beacon, very much the same thing happened in Atlas. And RWBY's trying to, reassure her that Weiss did all she possibly could. There's not much more she could have done. And Jean's name actually pops up in that conversation alongside Winter. Now, none of them know that Jean's here in the Ever After. Because we all know that Winter more than likely made it out. But Jean, the team doesn't know that they didn't make it, that he didn't make it. The remaining members of Juniper, meaning Nora and Ren, those two also don't know that Jean never made it out. Which could bring certain aspects of RWBY's second trial by fire into more clarity. The people and or their memories, as well as possibly the team, maybe things that RWBY has to leave behind. So it's we're talking more hints of that, and then certain aspects of the tensions that are starting to show light. Could be seeing a Team RWBY splitting up once again, like they did in the end of Volume 3, which was the focus, which is, in my opinion, the focal point in Volume 4. It's you're talking the perspective of each individual team member. Blake being Menagerie, RWBY going on to Mistral, Weiss being stuck in Alice, and Yang dealing with PTSD. Now, the whole thing they mentioned, and when it comes to like the book that this is volume 9 is based on Alice in Wonderland. So the Alice for this volume is a girl named Alex. So Alex is Alice. So, but in chapter 3, I'm going to mention a little bit more about this whole Alice in Wonderland thing, because I did see volume 3. I do need to see parts of it again to, to get some idea, like, within my notes. Make sure I'm seeing it correctly. Now, the quote-unquote, the book, where volume 9 is, we don't know if it takes place before the events of RWBY or it's a few years afterwards. There's a bit of it remains to be seen there, my personal opinion. Now, another thing here with the auction itself, this could be a key indicator of the team splitting up once again. Now, a lot of people really don't want to see this happen, but you're talking about certain things that are going on within the team. It's like something's not adding up. They're not on the same page. And then to reiterate the whole thing, the team not really being on the same page is, again, you have to look at the direction each team member is facing. Because if you have Blake and Yang looking at each other while RWBY and Weiss are looking at the viewer, it's like it's not as a united front as people think the team is. And I think some of the tensions are going to be paving the way for not only a team split, but also some much needed conversations within the team. And the fact that it appears that RWBY and Weiss are on a more united front than Blake and Yang could very well hint at a team RWBY being split up for that type of for that reason, but not being the only reason. Now, when it comes to like certain aspects of the end of chapter 9 of this particular chapter, one of RWBY's last lines, it's like, we should follow them. Stop pretending we know what we're doing. That could be homage to a certain chapter in volume 6 where Blake came out with the idea of sending Weiss to Alice. And the tone in that particular part of volume 6 had, and this is my opinion, suggests that Weiss goes alone. Meaning that Weiss can use her stance to bring the team along with. Although Blake wasn't aware of that time that Weiss was stripped of her era status in volume 4. Meaning that no one really knows what's going on. No one really knows what to do. And even though in volume 8, Weiss had a very thoroughly thought out plan. Even though it failed, at least Weiss gave it her best shot. Which I think, Weiss's planning was a bit more, it was a better thought out than what Blake had for them to get into Alice. Meaning that we can see some major weaknesses forming in the team that the bad guys, Cinder and company, have already been exploiting. Now, I'm going to bring up, when it comes to there's certain things I have in my notes. I was thinking about putting it in here. Let me check my time real quick. So I am actually way ahead on schedule. So, so there's a video game character, and it's from a noted franchise, where I'm going to go into part of the ending of the last game within that, trilogy. Not the entire ending, but a part of it. Which I feel resonates really well with RWBY's decision-making at the end of Chapter 2 here in Volume 9. Now, the video game character I'm referring to is Clear Lightning Farron. She is the female protagonist from the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy. Now, a portion of the ending I'm going to be referring to in this video, which resonates to RWBY's last lines in Volume 9, Chapter 2, is actually Lightning Returns. And this is a necessary offshoot where it's like, you could probably see some of the similarities between portion of the ending to Lightning Returns Final Fantasy 13 and RWBY's final lines in Volume 9, Chapter 2. And this is a bit of a spoiler alert! So basically, a part of the ending in Lightning Returns is that Lightning's willing to sacrifice herself to become the new goddess of death, leaving everything and everyone she knows behind. Meaning that her friendships with Fang and Vanille, leaving Sarah behind, Hope, everybody, even Snow. She was willing to sacrifice herself to make sure that everybody is happy. She was really, like, going towards that direction. Now, Hope, as a response to all that, was like, no, I won't let you. Meaning that it kind of, had something, quote-unquote, snap within Lightning, realizing, is this what is really desired by everybody else of her? Meaning that, should Lightning really sacrifice herself for everybody else? And we all know that in the end of that ending, Lightning does not become the new goddess of death. She becomes human once again because Caius and one of the Yules take her place. And, Lightning, is freed of whatever role she was supposed to have. And then, she reunites with Sarah, Benevolza, I can't pronounce that dude's name. So basically, it's like, Lightning is human once again. And she's reunited with the people that stood by her side, gave a damn about her. And yes, I'm including Noel in this one. But anyway, so what does the Lightning Returns ending have to do with RWBY's last lines? Now, if you pay careful attention to the way RWBY was saying some of her final lines, it is suggesting that RWBY is willing to sacrifice herself for the sake of the team. Because after RWBY finishes her plea, Yang and Blake kind of put two and two together rather quickly. Although, even that quickly might be too late. Meaning that RWBY's willing to sacrifice herself for the sake of the team. And which could very well repeat the actions of Summer Rose, RWBY's mom. So it's one of those things where it's like, the fact that Blake and Yang were realizing the tone's we may be splitting up again. It's it's kind of exposes their selfishness. Because earlier on in the chapter, and now this is where I get into that certain scene I was referring to, and I'm going to go into the earlier part of that section. So earlier I went on, about how Weiss expresses her regret for her feeling that she could have done more for Atlas. Because we know now, Weiss is homeless. She doesn't have a home to go back to. Now, earlier on, Blake and Yang do the handsy thing where Blake reaches her hand out, but Yang's too slow to reach back. Now, a lot of people on Twitter have been saying, oh, that's going to become canon, but it's it has to be confirmed by the people who write for the show. Meaning that the voice actors actually have no real say in it. They can say, hey, can you make us canon? Can you make these two characters canon? It's they can think about it, but they don't have to go along with it. Because it may not fit the vision of what they want for the show. Granted, Blake is confirmed to be bisexual. However, we don't know the thing with Yang. Which could further support that conversation between Nora and Ren in Volume 7. Meaning that one of them won't feel the same way about the other, even though the hints are starting to suggest that they do feel the same way. And with RWBY's actions in Volume 9, Chapter 2, it could be seen as RWBY being a huge catalyst in one of two outcomes. Outcome number one, Bumblebee is confirmed to be one-sided because one of them won't feel the same way about the other, as hinted in the dialogue between Nora and Volume 7. That's outcome number one. Or outcome number two, if they do become canon, it won't remain canon. Because if you look at the insect that Bumblebee is named after, and it's an actual type of bee, the lifespan of a bumblebee is actually 28 days. So it doesn't have the lasting power. Granted, the ship itself holds, true for the criteria of a metaphorical slow burn. However, it does not meet the criteria for a literal slow burn. Whereas if you look at something like, and I'm going to name some of the other ships in this show that's possible, one of them being Black Sun, that's Blake and Sun, as well as Monochrome or Checkmate, which is Blake and Weiss. Both of those meet both the criteria for both literal and metaphorical slow burn. Now, another potential ship where it's like, it meets the literal definition of the slow burn, and like Monochrome or Checkmate, whichever one you want to use, it is a rare pair, and that's Yang and Weiss. So it comes down to who really gets to be confirmed as canon. However, I'm going to go in, like I said, this comes down to that separate video that I'm going to have to start working on once Volume 9 is done on Crunchyroll's end, because another potential pairing that could become canon is actually Weiss and Jean, aka White Knight. The hint there comes all the way back in Volume 1, meaning that the chess pieces. So we don't know, and then we also know that within that whole scene where it's like Weiss sees what's going on, RWBY's oblivious, and then we're talking moments later, Weiss expresses her regret for not doing more for Atlas, even though RWBY tries to reassure her that you did all you could. If you notice some of the RWBY's lines, the way she's saying it, it's becoming more, she's becoming a little bit more like Lightning from Lightning Returns Final Fantasy 13, the third game of that trilogy. Because it could sound like RWBY might be willing to sacrifice herself for the better of the team. And that could be, and that's probably the case because you're talking about the other three members, Weiss, Blake, and Yang, all have expressed their questions or doubts about RWBY as a leader, even though RWBY is 2 years younger than everybody else. Even though Weiss is probably the first one to see that having a younger set of eyes, a fresher set of eyes, might be what's needed. Having something different, something to break that cycle. And with Yang and Blake, it's like, I'm not so sure if they're really seeing the same things that Weiss is seeing. But like I said, regarding the separate video about Bumblebee, if I think it's going to become canon or remain canon, that's going to be a completely separate video, because I do need to look at, varying moments as well as intros to the varying volumes. And I know Volume 6 kind of carries a key, hinted to that, in my personal opinion, alongside certain aspects from each of the individual volumes. And I will say that Volume 4 might become, a role in it, but I do feel Volume 5 will be a bigger role into the equation than Volume 4. And, that's one video on Bumblebee. Another video I'm going to be doing is, will Team RWBY split up? I'm probably going to be doing that between chapters 5 and 6. The halfway point. And I'm going to use everything up to Volume 9, Chapter 5, which should be coming out in a few weeks, instead of, to the general public. So I'm going to be focusing some of my energy for the next few weeks, the whole thing, will Team RWBY split up by the end of Volume 9? Because it looks like with the cover art here for Volume 9, intros to from the previous volumes, alongside the how do I want to say it? How do I want to say this? It's and then there's certain scenes where it's like, okay, are we really seeing like another team split? And then when it comes to the team split, I'm going to focus on the end of Volume 5 to Volume 9, Chapter 5. So that's the only thing I'm going to be referring to in the sense of the canon material. And I'm also going to be referring to the two. I know there's at least 2 RWBY novels, and I know I've read them both. So it's one of those things where it's like using the true canon material, in my personal opinion, meaning that you're talking about 4.5 volumes, being volumes. Actually, it's 3.5 volumes. So it's going to be the end of Volume 5 when they actually, you know what? It's going to be Volume 5, Chapter 4 to Volume 9, Chapter 5. So it's about 4 volumes worth of material to look at. Because I was trying to think, okay, how do I want to do that part? I'm like, so I'm thinking, okay, where do I really want to, start? So I'm going to start the whole thing with the Team RWBY split potential. I'm going to start with Volume 5, Chapter 4. Because we know that's where Weiss and Yang reunite. Then whatever happens at Volume 9, Chapter 5. So that's about, like I said, it's about 4 volumes worth of material. Because all of Volume 4, everything beforehand, everybody was still split. And like I said, that's going to be one of those things I'm going to have to do a little bit of research on. Because like I said, I do think Team RWBY is going to be splitting up again. It's just a matter of, what factors are there, that sort of thing. And then the whole thing with Bumblebee, I'm going to wait till Volume 9, Chapter 10 comes out to the public. So that's going to be, I want to say maybe at least a couple of months away. So that way I have all the material, that I need to make sure that I have the hints, tone suggestions, etc. ready for that. And what I'm going to be doing for both the Bumblebee, my opinion on Bumblebee, as well as the Team RWBY split, I'm going to be using the computer that's in my bedroom, because I know they have a program that I like to use called Microsoft PowerPoint. That way I can, have the pictures there. You guys get to see, some of my notes, all that stuff. And that way you guys get to see, how I feel about, both particular items, because in Volume 9 so far, I do feel that RWBY as a team is going to split up once again. The question is, what are the factors there, and will a certain ship be a big reason behind it? And regarding Bumblebee, the other topic, will RWBY become both a catalyst and a reason why it's either one-sided or it does not remain canon? Because you have to think, because one has to really think about it, it's certain things come at a big cost. So I'm going to check my time once more, make sure I'm within the 35-minute limit, because it's oddly enough, when it comes to with certain apps, they have a time limit. It's just I just want to make sure that everything is on the same page. And then another thing I want to point out here with Chapter 2 is around the same length as Chapter 1. So my opinions on all of this are as follows. So it looks like things are leaving a bit much to be desired in certain aspects. And then there are people on Twitter who are bringing up amazing points about the show's flaws. Some of the flaws that are being exploited is the execution of varying things. It's why are things not done as well as they should be? The potential. And then the whole thing here is just we have certain characters they're not really coming out right away, because of their length being a bit too short. Now, the only spoiler I'm going to give for Chapter 3 is that the length is a little bit longer. But that's the only spoiler you guys are getting for Chapter 3. So, other than that, some of my opinions, like I said, I do feel RWBY is going to be, as a team, is going to be splitting up once again at the end of this volume. Because again, the cover art here is pretty much, in my personal opinion, a big hint into that. Because you got team members not always being on the same page on things that matter. And with the end of this particular chapter 2, you have RWBY's lines starting to question the team as a whole. Although I think it's probably going to be RWBY and Weiss as like their team, because they're on the same page. They want to get that. They want to get out of Ever After and back to Remnant. Whereas Blake and Yang, they're not really thinking about the team. They're just thinking about themselves. And if you're thinking about yourself as opposed to the team, it repeats a particular item in Volume 4, where in a conversation between Tai Yang and Yang about Raven was the reason why Team Stark fell apart. Blake and Yang's selfishness could very well repeat that mistake. And in Volume 9 thus far, and this is something that's worth pointing out, it looks like it's about the team. Why are they repeating the same mistakes from the past? Because if you want things to stop, you gotta break the cycle. You gotta break certain habits from the people that came out and about before you. And it's something that Blake and Yang need to realize. Like, them wanting to be together may not be the best thing to do right now. Because they're not in Remnant. And they can't stop thinking that way. Because they're trapped in Ever After with RWBY and Weiss. Granted, Weiss is really supportive of Blake and Yang, but RWBY is not only oblivious to it, but you have to remember back in Volume 1 how Yang is with the boys. So we're talking about discussions that need to be had between the team. And I'm going to check the time one last time because I might be running close. I'm starting to get a little close on the time here. So to do a bit of a recap, so I think there are tensions coming within the team. Because there's something else I forgot to mention with the tensions, is that the tone between the conversation, the tone of the conversation between Yang and Weiss could have some resurfacing dislikes about each other. It could be in suggesting that. Despite Volume 5, Chapter 4, Weiss missed the team. Yang, however, and this is something that people will have to have a good eye to catch. Yang was hesitant in returning the hug. Now you're looking at Volume 5, Chapter 6. It was like, RWBY, was reunited with Yang, Weiss, was like sad because, I think she misses Winter really. And then once Weiss came to them for the hug, RWBY was like, hey, I'm so good to see you again, Weiss. Yang was more hesitant. So we're probably going to be seeing some pretty big tensions and resurrecting tensions between Yang and Weiss. Which could affect varying things. And yes, I do feel Weiss is going to be a reason that Bumblebee is going to get affected the way that people don't want it to. So, I'm going to get going for right now. It's about 29 something minutes. I only have maybe a few more minutes to discuss this before I have to do another video. But yeah, tensions are going to be rising once again. The whole thing with Bumblebee, it is a teaser in my personal opinion. I think they're baiting because it's like... And then the whole thing with Volume 7, Nora... You have Nora Weiss, not on the same page. Ren's it's one-sided. And then the whole thing with Alex is Alice and Alice in Wonderland. You have RWBY calling out the team at the end. And then it's when it comes to like Blake's knowledge of the book, it's like it's going to be, I feel it's going to be useful here for volume 9. But it comes down to certain aspects where it's like, is Blake really that useful? Probably not. Not as much as people think she is. And then you're talking about the tone in RWBY's plea. And then, if you think about Blake and Yang, I think it's repeating the mistakes from Team Stark. And I think we're probably going to see stuff like this keep on happening unless they break that cycle. And then I do feel that with RWBY's actions in Volume 9 thus far, it's reminding me very strongly of Lightning from Final Fantasy XIII Trilogy. More specifically, parts of the ending from Lightning Returns. So, and I do feel that this art right here is seeing the team splitting up once again. And that's all I have for this video. With Wolvie here, signing off. I will catch you all on the flip side.